Welcome!
Welcome to the Omniverse of Nick and the finale to What If Green Goblin Survived. Before we get into it, be sure to check out the Omniverse's homepage, where our channel mascot Omni will direct you to the Discord, all Google Docs, and everything else the Omniverse has to offer, along with smashing the like button, subscribing to the Omniverse of Nick, sharing the Omniverse around, turning on all Omniversal notifications, and commenting future requests and expectations for the future of the Omniverse in the comment section. With all that said, let's begin. We open up where we ended off last time, with Doc Ock going to create a distraction, seemingly in the lab way before Peter and Sandman, with a plan of his own, and goes while Mary Jane and Gwen are kidnapped by Toxin or Lasher Green Goblin, who gets out of the symbiote and menacingly smiles and says that this is the root of their plan. The true plan to finally kill Peter Parker and Doc Ock. They dealt with his miserable son. Now, these two hostages are the perfect way to end all of the problems and hatred they have for Peter Parker and everyone he loves, and then the world is theirs. Venom, with Eddie Brock as the host, he is there teamed up and relishes in what is about to happen. But then he is knocked away by a powerful strike, but the symbiote catches himself midair and lassos on back onto the ground, so it catches him. You know how the symbiote works. Doc Ock has arrived, and he faces down Norman in a battle before the battle of snarky remarks and quips towards their past lifestyles, the men that they turned into, and what they're about to do. But Norman or Green Goblin says any whole part of Norman Osborn that existed, he died the second that you plunged him into the lake with your machine. I can make you join that corpse down there if you want, before we kill Peter Parker. And with that, he turns back into Lasher or Toxin, and Venom rises over Eddie. But just then, something happens. Doc Ock's arms, they turn completely green, and two pumpkin bombs spring out of the ones facing forward in front of him, with the others back and on the ground, waiting for an extra attack and keeping him levitated. And he says, very symbolized of No Way Home, "You want to play games? Catch!" And with the pumpkin bombs in the center of his arms, he throws them, because it's revealed in that lab, Doc Ock upgraded his arms with more Oscorp and Goblin technology and made pretty much Green Goblin arms, Octo arms. So yeah, he throws the pumpkin bombs and throws Venom back. But Venom just keeps on attacking. But it becomes plainly obvious, with Doc Ock using all four arms and the Oscorp Goblin arms at his advantage, and multiple pumpkin bombs and his already potent power and control over the arms, Venom is absolutely no match. And soon, the symbiote starts to just devolve off. And once the Venom symbiote is all, defenseless, it is potent that not only is Venom about to die, but he's no longer with a host. So he gets bombed by Doc Ock to death, with Eddie jumping in, not wanting to lose the symbiote. So he dies too. Then Toxin, Lasher, whatever you want to call him, Green Goblin, rushes forward on the glider and faces down and shows more and more of his power. And Doc Ock knows that even with his Oscorp goblin arms and his mastery over them, this is an even fight. He's actually much more on par with this symbiote goblin than he thought he'd be. But he knows he will not be able to take him completely down. He did take down Venom and Eddie, unfortunately Eddie, but also not. But he cannot take down Goblin. So he yells out, knowing that they're nearby, "Do your plan now!" And all of a sudden, Lasher Toxin Goblin, thinking that Doc Ock's gone more crazy, like him, and is just talking to himself, doesn't pay attention to the fact a huge sand tornado is rushing at full speed towards him. And it plummets him all the way up. And then Peter, Toby, uses his webs, wraps them all around, and gets the symbiote away from Goblin, pulls Goblin forward, and stabs him with the cure. So, no more Goblin. And with Lasher Toxin all by itself, Sandman uses another sand tornado, beats the ever-loving tar out of Lasher Toxin, and then Doc Ock uses his Oscorp Goblin arms, throws pumpkin bomb after pumpkin bomb, and it completely eradicates Lasher or Toxin. And afterwards, the battle has been won. Now, the problem comes down to not only what to do with Norman from here, but Mary Jane and Gwen because of the whole situation at the beginning of the movie. Because we didn't have evil Toby, so we're not going to have him hitting MJ or, trying to openly cheat on MJ. But there is still a bit of an issue. But Gwen says that she understands, and anything that there was, mixed or, however it came off whenever she kissed Spider-Man before, she did absolutely not mean that. And she understands the whole thing about what happened and everything, and she says she's happy for Peter. And it seems okay. Afterwards, just like the end of the movie, Spider-Man 3, Peter and MJ not only mourn the loss of Harry, Sandman goes away, and as for Norman, he has a long road of redemption ahead of himself, as well as Doc Ock, but they work on it together, since Doc Ock has Oscorp technology, so they're going to revolutionize it in a way that truly means that they can defend the world with Spider-Man, the person who changed their lives forever. And as for Sandman, he just goes off on his own. Now, we get to No Way Home. But, oh boy. If you thought that the Doc Ock story made No Way Home seem pointless just with Lizard Venom alone being the main threat, maybe besides Electro, and Goblin being cured right at the start, yeah, this does not mean anything. We have Sandman, who only fought in the movie just to get home. We have Doc Ock, who is cured with Oscorp technology. We have Goblin, who is cured and alive. So the only two menaces we have in the movie are Electro and Lizard. But with Goblin and Doc Ock and all three Spider-Men, it's absolutely no contest. They are cured. If Lizard somehow wasn't cured right away after Electro, was cured, if it somehow became a thing, I'm sorry to say, No Way Home, the heroes take it all and show that Goblin, while being the most menacing menace and villain of the Spider-Man universe, just meant an all too happy ending for the Spider-Verse in its entirety. So, we come to the end of another tale. And it was even more better done than the Doc Ock one. But not No Way Home. Because for No Way Home to be effective, you would have to make it so Norman and Doc Ock would be put in a situation that either one of them doesn't get the treatment that they got in this story, but the other characters got an upgrade to make them more powerful. And yes, I could have included Lasher and Venom. I could have included a symbiote. But we all saw in the Doc Ock one that even a lizard Venom, it's just not even worth bringing up. And true, I could have had Lizard and Sandman and Venom in the mix. Yes, that would have been an epic conclusion. That would have been an epic idea. But it still would not have mattered. Because of Doc Ock's huge improvement, Norman Osborn being there as a longer standing figure and redeeming himself after he was cured, and the already impending knowledge of the symbiotes would have made it so that way it wouldn't have even been a fight. You have Toby's Spider-Man, you have Andrew's Spider-Man, you have Tom's Spider-Man, you have Doc Ock, Norman Osborn, you have Sandman, and Electro would have been healed. So even if you throw Lizard into the mix, he would be by himself. Because you can't trust the fact that Sandman, without other villains influencing him to just be bad and be all, I want to go home, so I'm going to team up with all the other villains crap, because it just wouldn't work. True, you could combine Lizard with Venom and then Lasher. Make 3 freaking unstoppable forces become one. But it really doesn't work. He would be no match. So with that, Tom probably most likely would still want the spell at the end, but it would be a much more peaceful and cinematic moment because of all the figures that have really helped him understand. But then again, he might not even do it, because look at the Doc Ock story. He would have still done it. But then look at this story. There's so much more success in the multiverse that even Doctor Strange would be one for thinking, okay, since the multiverse didn't collapse in on itself like the canon one and not even the Doc Ock one, okay, maybe the universe and the multiverse is better. But it all depends. What I ultimately think is, even if it didn't happen in the No Way Home iteration, and even if it took more consideration and thought for the almost entire rest of the movie, after basically the beginning solving all of its problems in one, and not even an Aunt May death, it means that we would get a much more wholesome Tom Holland Spider-Man saga, and not have him go down the dark path, because he'd still have a figure in his life, and he would also not have the whole great power, great responsibility, which would honestly take a part of his character out. But when you put everything in the way of Doc Ock and Norman Osborn, they all would teach Tom the lesson that Aunt May would try to teach him, even if it'd be better left for Aunt May. But in this, you can't really depend on that, because if she didn't say it while she was still alive and wasn't put in a situation to die, something else or someone else would take the place of that mantra. Overall, with Norman Osborn surviving, Green Goblin surviving, and so much more to work with than Doc Ock, it means that there's so much more room in the Spider-Man series to make better. Because not only is Norman Osborn a brilliant scientist and could clone symbiotes, it would honestly mean that Doc Ock would survive, because Norman would take it upon himself to not appear just once, not twice, but multiple times, and he would be smarter, stronger, and he would show that the Green Goblin is the most dangerous, the most influential, and most powerful Spider-Man villain in all of history. And this story should signify that to a T. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed this road into the Omniverse with What If Green Goblin Survived. The next story, it's kind of going to be like the Adam and surviving in Saw, maybe even a tiny bit longer. Don't know that yet. But the next story is What If Eric Matthews Survived, then Breakdown. We are approaching the end of the Roman Reigns list and moving onward with the Omniverse. So, stay tuned, hyped, and packed as we grow the Omniverse of Nick.
Now get out!
What?
Get out! Everybody get out!